Listen to Two Married Lesbians discuss an LGBTQ plus book each month that highlights the queer human condition as they use connection and humor to relate the issues to us as a queer community. She's Anna.
And she's Miranda.
I am. And we're Two Married Lesbians.
We are.
And we're all queer here. All right. Welcome back for a very special bonus book. Wow, wow, wow.
Wow, wow.
Yeah. That's pretty exciting. We just thought we couldn't get enough of ourselves. No, that's not right. That's not how that works. But just thought not enough time in the month for, books, but we're going to cram an extra one in there. So it's like more books. I mean, that's never a bad thing, right?
Never a bad thing. Listen from the library and one of the digital apps on your way to work.
Yeah.
Listen during lunch.
Yeah, just get that reading in there.
Get it in there. Connect with those queer stories.
Oh, absolutely. Speaking of connecting with queer stories, did you create that segue for me?
I did not, but I saw your eyes light up.
Ooh. So, exciting news. We did mention it on last episode about connecting with us on social media. Of course, at Facebook, it's All Queer Here Pod, at All Queer Here Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And of course, we always want to hear from you at allqueerherepod@gmail.com. And brand spanking new that we're just telling you about, we are launching our website. Very big news. allqueerherepod.com. That's it, the end. That whole thing. That's it. That's us. And we really hope you'll check it out. Worked really hard on it. Fitz, our pug, might make a special appearance. Yes,
mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So we hope you'll check it out. Let us know what you think, how you feel. Are there books we need to know about? Maybe we don't know about. Are you seeing, effects of books being miscategorized in the library or other forms of censorship or banning,
All right, let's get to All Boys Aren't Blue. Publishers Weekly suggests this title for ages 14 and up. Book List suggests it for grades 9 through 12, which is high school, so that's important. We'll come back to that. But it is our personal belief that despite the age suggestions, parents have the final say for what reading material is appropriate for their child.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of parents, here is our warning. This book has some sexual content.
Warning, this book has some sexual content.
And we're going to talk about sex during this podcast. So
if you can't spell, that's sex.
Yeah, that is sex.
That's sex.
So if you've got the littles around, maybe get some headphones or give them headphones. Just put headphones on someone.
Someone should have
headphones.
But maybe not the combo of headphones on the littles with the podcast in the headphones.
Right, that's the one you want to avoid.
That's the only
but
one.
Every other combination should
Works
figure
great.
it out. Right. So our author, George M. Johnson, is Black and queer, as we see from the very beginning of this memoir manifesto, as it's called. Mm-hmm. I love that.
I do too.
Their website lists them as non-binary, and they use they, them pronouns.
All right.
All right, so before we dive in, we got to talk about this. We touched on book banning a little bit last week.
Yes.
Or last episode, where we talked about the self-censorship of our local librarians, putting a YA book in adult fiction.
Mm-hmm.
So this book has some heavy news around it because it's been banned from schools and libraries in 15 states.
That's unacceptable.
It's according
Should
to
be 0 states.
According to the Advocate. One of which is Texas, if you can believe it.
I believe it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that we are one of 15.
Easily can believe it.
Can Texas calm down?
No. I think they're leading the charge on some other people. Mm-hmm. All right, so our author, they comment in the Advocate article, I really wanted to give the youth, specifically Black queer youth and LGBTQ youth, a resource guide, Johnson said to the Advocate. While this book's target audience was for young adults, it can also be a valuable resource for parents and guardians to better understand what life is like for queer adolescents.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, the reality is there is no topic that is too heavy for a child who could experience said topic. If a child can experience sexual abuse at the age of 7, a child should understand what sexual abuse looks like, how to handle it, how to discuss it, and how to talk about it, Johnson said to CBS News.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, none of us are comfortable with the fact that kids that young can experience, sexual abuse. But the fact that it does happen way too frequently, and I mean, that alone means, yeah, we should make sure kids understand what that looks like and help them see and understand in a way that doesn't build shame around it, where people just bury things and then kids don't get the help that they need. Oh, and that was something I really wanted to talk about, and I can't wait to get into this book, is how incredibly supportive their family was, and how even the family members that didn't fully understand something or were really dealing with like generational or cultural biases, they were like, okay, I don't get it, but I'm gonna understand it because I love you and I accept who you are and I believe you when you tell me who you are. And I just, oh gosh, that was good. But I mean, that's jumping way ahead.
Well, I have more bad news, but before that, I have good news.
Oh, good news.
Yeah, so good before bad. So according to CBS News, Gabrielle Union, the actress and film executive, has reportedly signed an agreement with Sony Pictures TV to adopt the book into a series. I cannot wait. I hope it is authentic to the text.
I do
and
too.
We're not shying around on some issues. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
But I really felt like this book was such a authentic piece of self-discovery.
Oh, it was beautiful.
And I was like angry that I didn't have this as a kid. Like, even though I'm, much different than the author, I'm white, I'm female, I'm lesbian, but I resonated so much with the story.
Oh,
like,
there were
so many parts of it.
Absolutely. So many commonalities that even though our journeys were very different, I was like, oh my gosh, and that's exactly what makes the LGBTQ plus community so amazing, is even though there are so many differences between each of us, there's so many touchstones that we can kind of
connect with.
Oh yeah, it's just
like
so
this
good.
would have been the book that I lost, air quotes, from the school library and had to pay for because I was like, oh, sorry, Mom, it was some book about princesses. Just okay. Okay, so now back to the bad news.
I was hoping it would just go away.
All right. We've seen an increase in bannings, particularly in school libraries.
Unacceptable.
All right. So the American Library Association has an Office for Intellectual Freedom, and they track book bannings. So in the year 2021...
That doesn't seem right for
ready?
what's about to come out of your mouth.
Okay.
I think what you mean to say is 1489.
No.
Or some, okay.
Well, they're still tracking them,
1682.
Right? Nope.
1793.
Nope. We are in 2021, which was last year.
Oh, gosh.
They tracked 729 challenges to library, school, and university materials and services. So some of those services can be like drag queen story time. That was a big thing in North Texas a little bit ago.
Awesome.
It is awesome.
And amazing. Right. And people need to calm down. That's
so I'm going to say a lot of numbers, and then I'm going to come and I'm going to compare them.
Okay.
So in total for last year, 1,597 books were targeted. That's a huge number.
That's so many books.
Right. Of the top 10, they do a top 10 books each year.
Okay.
The most challenged. 5, so half were related to LGBTQIA+, which is how they categorize it, content.
Not something we want to top the list
right.
on.
Do you want to guess out of the 10 which one Johnson's was?
I'm going to go with number 2.
3. You were
3.
close.
Oh, I was
so close.
I think I know what number 1 was.
I don't remember. I didn't write it down.
Oh, really?
I wrote down content for this book.
Okay.
It was genderqueer.
I knew it.
Okay, I was going to say, wait a minute, it's popping up. Yeah. Sorry, it's popping up. Okay, yeah.
Such a good book, too.
Okay, so for 2020, so the year before, when the world was somewhat-ish normal, 156 challenges to library, school, and university materials and services. 273 books were targeted. Of the top 10 for that year, only 1 had LGBTQIA+ content.
Oh.
So other years mirror at least one to a few books with queer content, just consistently through the years I went through. So just as like a snapshot from the year 2020 to 2021, we went from 273 books targeted to 1,597 books targeted.
There are too many
That's more
bored
than
people.
5 times the number.
That too many bored people.
A lot of people are putting these lists together. So there's a state representative from Texas doing that. There's a lot of parent groups that get together, and they basically go to a database and type in like LGBT, gay, queer, lesbian, like all this stuff. Books about abortion, books about teen pregnancy. Sorry, teenagers have sex sometimes. And then they get pregnant because they don't always know what to do and what not to do.
Because schools very frequently don't actually teach any sort of
sex ed.
Yeah, it's all, well, at least in Texas, it's abstinence or nothing, and then sometimes it's nothing. And I mean, we're not even going to mention trying to have sex with people that, you know, are of the same sex or people outside
Intersex.
gender. Yeah, none of it's mentioned.
So
right?
book bannings, some of the top reasons for bannings are LGBTQIA plus content, violence, political viewpoint, and if it's sexually explicit.
Whoa.
Shortly after that is witchcraft, which makes me laugh. I'm sorry. All the Harry Potter bannings, and then the gender dysphoria, racist content, anti-police, graphic illustrations, transgender character, yeah, and then somewhere in there must be language. So, but those are the biggest ones. And then I want to say this because some people are kind of confused on this, and I know like it's really important to know the difference. So before a ban actually happens, before they go out and take the book out of the school or out of the local library, first a challenge has to happen. So a challenge is an attempt to remove or to restrict materials or services based on content.
Okay.
The tricky part is some people say they've read all of it, but they really haven't. And you're supposed to have read it in its entirety to not take something out of context. So that's my biggest thing.
Yeah.
All right. So what's a ban? So that's a challenge. What's a ban? A ban is the removal of materials or cancellation of services based on content. And that's for censorship by the numbers, by the American Library Association's Office of Intellectual Freedom.
Okay, so this is what's so enraging to me, is you have a group of people just searching book databases by keywords, including LGBTQ.
That's what I'm assuming. I mean, how else would you randomly get like, did you go to Amazon and just look for gay books? There's no way you just went and found all of those titles by all of those authors.
Well, they certainly didn't read them all.
No.
One of my friends who lives, you know, further outside of the big city, where things are even worse, if you can believe it. I can't. I used to live over there. But anyway, I digress. But one of the things that she and some other parents are dealing with is there is a group of people actively, they're shopping this list around and actively engaging these small libraries and trying to get stuff removed. I don't know how
when they're not residents.
I know, that's what I'm like. How are they doing this?
How is that not a news story? Can we send someone out there?
I know, right? Can we just send a little?
I have it on good authority.
Pride reporter. I'm getting the scoop. You know, I don't know, but I mean, let's think this through, right? So if there's a group of people that are like, we hate the gays, because we know they're out there.
And the trans people.
And the
Don't
trans
forget
people.
the transgender people.
We hate everybody in the umbrella category. But if that's a group and they're like, hey, we don't like these folks. If you get one resident out of all these different places, like, because when you meet online, generally speaking, you're not all from the same place. So what if that's what's going on? There's just like a group of people and they're like, oh, you're in this city? Go to your library. Here's our list. Like, it's like a groupthink hate book banning. Like, what is going on? Is that what's happening? I mean, how does this work? Because it's awful.
And that list has to keep growing because
Yes.
books come out every day that libraries get rather quickly from publishers. And
Yeah.
so they have them, pretty quickly after they release to have them on display.
Okay, well, I got another question, follow-up question to my attempt at trying to figure out how group hate works. Is there something that we can do, the people that want the books at the library? Can we say, hey, those people are jerks, bring it back?
Well, if you know of school board meetings where they're going to discuss any book bannings, it'll be in the paper. Most papers cover it, especially now. Try to learn about the books. Even if you don't have time to read them, try to learn as much about them as possible. And you can speak on behalf of as a parent or as a citizen and be like, like say this book came up for a local school board and I was a resident, and I would have been like, I'm, not sure. I haven't had time to read it. I'm not sure all what's in it, but I know that, it's about a non-binary person. And that's really important that for me to have that representation. And, Book List recommends it for grades 9 through 12. I'm not sure what the issue is other than it just being, a discriminatory decision to remove it. So things like that. So, contacting your school board members, that's just really the big one. And also local libraries, aside from being aware of what's in your library, as far as queer books, a lot of people just buy their books, or they do secondhand, or they, borrow books, or they do digital, a lot of digital, so they haven't stepped inside a library in a long time. Well, your digital collection might be totally different than what's in the stacks. So go take a look. Go online, look at the online catalog. You don't have to leave your house yet unless you want the book you find. So yeah, you've got that option. So I think a lot of it is just being aware and keeping a good eye on the news coverage of it, because a lot of book bannings happen quietly, but they also lately have been happening a lot more publicly. And that's the good thing. Parents have the right to say what is right or wrong for their child to read. They don't have the right to say what's right or wrong for other people's children to read.
I agree.
So just be aware of what's going on in your community. As much as you can, because there's a lot of news out there.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I didn't even know that, they would publish ahead of time, like when school board meetings and things are. But yeah, I mean, I imagine that it's a whole lot of angry, uptight people that are trying to, encourage the process of book banning. And there probably aren't a lot of people that are speaking out against it. Because, I mean, I know for myself, I would have just been like, wait, what? And I'd be the type that would find out after the fact and then be angry.
Like, it's too late now. I mean, you could always try to revisit it in a little while, but yeah, it's tough. Once they're out, it's really hard to get them back in.
Gosh, that's ridiculous. But and you've said this before, and I love it. You were telling me the other day that the book ban lists are like must reads, like some of the best reading.
Oh yeah, it's like my whole to be read pile. TBR, absolutely. Because if a book is banned, there is some kernel of truth within it that you must read. And you must devour the whole book as soon as possible.
Yes.
So because this book, and I knew it had been banned in a lot of places, I didn't know quite 15. So that's actually how their book got on my list initially, because it was a banned book. I was like, oh, well, this is on my list, and until I get a hold of it. And thinking about our bonus book, I was like, I'd really like to get that read. Like, it seems really great, and then I was like, whoa, 15 states, this is insane. So, I mean, I hope, it just makes people read it even more and find the truth and know that people are afraid of knowledge, and they're afraid of spreading the truth. And that's what queer books do, is they spread knowledge and they spread truth. And so by banning them, you're trying to ban an entire group of people, an entire group's existence. And that's not okay.
No, it's not okay. It's not so easy to erase us. Nope. I gotta say, so I'm trying to remember where I originally heard this because it's so good and I want to like give them props. But I've been listening to so many podcasts, it's just hard to say. But somebody wiser than I was talking about when you have, especially when you talk about strangers who just hate other. They hate and they'll speak out and yell at people or, be violent, whatever, however that hatred manifests itself. And they kind of brought up the concept of how our queerness, whether it be our gender identity, whether it be, our sexuality, whatever it is basically we aren't obeying the rules that they were told they had to. And at some point in their life, they wanted to be different than what the norm was, and were told, no, you can't. And whether that was a little boy who cried and his dad, was like, oh, that's for sissies and you can't cry, boys don't cry, whatever. And that stuck with him and he grew up, and then he sees someone walking down the street that is the exact opposite of what he was told normal was and what he was told he had to be. And that abrupt visualization of the difference between what that person was sold as this is what you have to do versus us just walking around being awesome and amazing and enjoying our
freedom
and our lives and being just queer as heck. I would be angry too. But here's the deal. You don't have to be a jerk and you don't have to have hatred in your heart. Be angry at the patriarchy. Be angry at the person that kept you down, and then go home and self-examine.
And go to therapy.
Oh my gosh, go to everybody. Just stop what you're doing. Turn off the podcast. Go to therapy. Come back. Finish listening.
Yeah.
But all the therapy. But I mean, seriously, like, it's such a nuanced issue. But I don't know. I really like the way that was kind of encapsulated. And I was like
extremely homophobic people since the dawn of time have themselves been closeted. So
not all of them, but yeah,
but many of them.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, let's jump into this book's amazing content.
Yes.
They talk early on about the gendering of children, which I know we both feel very strongly about. The gender reveal parties are just very and cringeworthy, and the norms that heterosexuals force on children as gender identities are becoming more and more expansive, that we kind of continue to increase these norms. What do you think about that?
I understand that as a parent, you're really excited to celebrate your kid, and I get that. But celebrating an infant's genitalia, I think is weird. Celebrate the kid. Celebrate, oh my gosh, we got a baby, or we adopted a kid, whatever it is, right? Celebrate that. But you don't know who that child will be. And as a parent, we can say, just because you have an idea of what you want your kid to be, they may not be that.
And also stop with the bow taping. Stop taping bows to bald baby girls' heads. Okay? Because I was one of those babies. And I hate those baby pictures because there shouldn't have been tape on my head.
Is it visible?
No, I don't know. That's not the point. The point is you shouldn't have to prove or show that someone is a girl just because they're a bald baby. They're a baby. They're unisex.
Oh, I agree. Unisex until they decide otherwise. And when I say they, I mean that baby. Preferably old enough to like stand up and stuff. But as soon as they can say how they feel, go for it, baby. Tell us who you are. Yeah, oh gosh, that is... Quit putting tape on bald babies. That's all you know.
Pretty much, yeah.
I think the less we drastically try to just hold on to weird conventions that don't serve anybody but just cause harm, I think the better off we'll be. And I think gender reveal parties are just another one on that pile, you know?
Yeah, we need to be done with those. They're just really annoying. And there's like confetti and glitter, and it's just...
Wasn't there one where some lady farted dust?
I think it was like powder.
Yeah, that one was weird.
That was weird. That was a weird video. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of weird stuff out there. Everyone's got to outdo it. It's like the huge proposal, and now we've got to have the crazy gender reveal. Well, I hope you don't have more than one kid, because now you can like, come up with more than one idea, whereas you usually only have to come up with one proposal.
Well, if you do it right.
If you do it right. So, yeah, but just, really focusing on just that big reveal is just, don't you just want a healthy baby?
Yeah, but I mean, like, I'm also like, why? So we just found out a thing that may not be true?
Well, how often, even in this book, they were like, it's a girl. And then they came out, it was
running
like,
back.
It's a boy. Yeah, and it's like, that happens all the time. Even on, I know that the scans are a lot more technologically advanced now, but still.
I did like that, and this is skipping ahead a little bit, but I liked that they really spoke about how therapy isn't talked about in the Black community. And I mean, obviously that's not the only community where therapy is not talked about or underutilized.
I love the Double Dutch and the football story and their reflection on how sports reflect masculinity. I wrote down this quote: "The audacity of society to infuse manhood into a child's life." I thought that was really powerful when we think about, they were like, I'm still good at football and Double Dutch.
Yeah.
That sense that you can have both. Why do you need to choose? Why are we on this gotta get to manhood path?
Yeah. I absolutely think that's ridiculous for a kid. I want to go... We went forward. I want to go back. So the moment where they talk about getting jumped as a 5-year-old,
yes,
was incredibly alarming. That was another one of those. I was listening to audiobook again. I had to pause it. I had to scream at the car radio and be like, no, what? No! And rewind and do it again just to be sure I heard correctly. The good side there was their family, was there. I mean, they were, doing everything they could, cousins jumping in and protecting them, and the family came together and just being held by their mother, But the quote that really stuck with me, and I may not have this quite right, but I think I got it. But I absolutely love this, was, "My lips became protection for the smile that was stolen." And even though obviously I can't relate to that, I didn't have that experience, I relate so much to having a moment as a kid that was traumatizing. And then, even though we had very different experiences and different sources of trauma, like, I relate so much to kind of how, as a human in the world, you create these ways of masking that trauma. For them it was, their lips not smiling, those sorts of things. And we all have our own lips. Yes, we do. But like, we all have those things that we kind of use as a crutch or a mask. So
absolutely. That was a really powerful story. On a lighter note, I really loved it when they talked about when Nanny tells them when they date a boy, she has to meet him first.
Oh, yeah. I loved that. I loved Nanny so much. I loved how they were talking about how even though Nanny didn't have words for some of these things, and even though Nanny it might have struggled with, what was it, their aunt that was trans.
I think so. You made a lot of queer family members.
Yeah, how awesome is
Gay
that?
older half brother, Gigi.
Yes.
Trans cousin, Hope.
Oh, it was cousin, not
Right, it was
aunt.
a cousin.
It's
And
cousin.
they mentioned their birth name, which I thought was interesting, but I guess also in that context it was relevant.
Okay, I gotcha. But anyway, I just loved that Nanny saw that George was going to need, to create community, and would encourage George to do all these different things to create community as they aged. And also that Nanny literally created a nonprofit for George to volunteer at.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
I mean, okay, so we all need Nick's mom from Heartstopper and Nanny from All Boys Aren't Blue. And then just, okay, great. And we'll find a dad along the way.
Yeah.
Okay. Or maybe another mom. I mean, whatever.
They also mentioned at some point, whether you're born gay, whether you're born queer or grow into it. Mm-hmm. And their comment was, it doesn't matter because it's who you are. And I think you're born queer and then you grow into it. I don't know that it has to be either or.
That's your argument?
Yeah, because I think the grow into it, people kind of could lean on, well, you're making them gay. No, you're not always like a shining star as you come out of the womb. It took me a little while. It took you a lot longer.
It did.
To come out as queer. So definitely think you can be born queer and then grow into it.
I don't know how I feel about the whole grow into it. I mean, I definitely feel that I was born gay. I have a t-shirt that says such, but I do feel that way. And I mean, it took me a long time to grow into it, to feel comfortable, and to just be like, boom, here I am, better late than never, fabulous now. Sorry about the last 34 years. They were, we needed some rewrites. But yeah, I don't know. I do think that as queer people, we typically have kind of a stilted, everything gets pushed back, like a stilted adolescence when it comes to dating and everything. So often, if your straight friends are dating in middle school and high school as a queer person, or at least when,
Yeah, I was gonna say, not necessarily. So,
Yeah.
Some of the more progressive areas
Are they? That's great news.
They're doing all kinds of stuff. Yeah, I mean, great for you.
Was it great for me?
Great for them.
Great for them.
Just be careful. Careful with your heart.
Careful with your heart. Yeah, absolutely. But that's awesome news. I do think queer generations are shorter than straight generations. You look at just our age difference.
Yeah.
You had a slightly different queer experience than I did. Sometimes I'll mention stuff and you're like, what?
Yeah, just in the 5 years.
Yeah. Interesting. I did appreciate the bringing up gay lingo and about how straight folks and society kind of steals the words and uses them without any of the fear of harm. And I thought that was a really good point. Yes, queen, and stuff like that. Yeah, it's great and fun to say, but you saying that if you're a straight person and safe hits a little different.
Well, they talk about being black first in the white community and queer first in the black community. Mm-hmm. And then they talk about reclaiming the N-word, and that some people think there's just too much hate behind it to ever reclaim. Mm-hmm. And, basically, it should make white people uncomfortable because there's a pretty significant history there.
Yes.
And white people shouldn't have an opinion on it. I say this as a white person.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree.
But I have used queer as an example before as reclaiming words, and that queer used to be pretty negative. Obviously not for as long, or not by no means the same context as the N-word.
Absolutely. Agreed.
But that word came back around as to reclaim and to describe, and now it's an umbrella term. So words do evolve. But the history still needs to
needs to be acknowledged.
Needs to be remembered. Yeah, it
Yes.
needs to be remembered and needs to be acknowledged. And I think, if it makes white people uncomfortable, I think we should do it.
Yeah, that's the bar we measure it by.
Just because. But, I'm glad that they addressed that. I think that's important.
Yes, I agree. The few times that I've heard a white person use that, like the full word, it's like, I don't want to say nails on a chalkboard because that would just be like, oh, it's annoying. No, it's horrendously awful. Why are you allowed to talk? Please get away from me. You're awful. Like, it just kind of defies, I don't know. I cannot come up with a word that explains how heinously awful it is. It's not a social contract. It's just, you don't do that.
Was it a white male?
Oh, yes.
Well, because so you got this dichotomy of a white privileged male who can essentially in society do no wrong, gets lower, legal sentences, and you...
Or none,
community service. And you're telling them that they can't say a word? There's just one? Well, they're going to say it. Because who's to tell them no? So I think I'm thinking about this now. Like, that's the group you don't say no to. And it's like, yeah, you just need to start listening.
Yeah. I don't understand why that specific group, I mean, any group any person, I don't want to say group, but any person that balks at being told that a word harms somebody, being told, hey, this is harmful, don't do it because you're hurting someone. And when they, don't listen, they just skip right over, oh, you're asking me not to actively harm somebody with my words. They skip over that and they immediately direct it back at themselves and go, what? I'm so sick of this PC culture and how I can't say what I want to say. All these words are changing and I don't like it. And it's like, okay, but real talk, are you saying you've never changed your vocabulary ever? So like, are you still talking about VCRs and floppy disks when you mean, backing your phone up to the cloud and watching a movie on iTunes? Like, is that what you're talking about? Because those are examples of how our language has evolved. Have you ever had a female friend that got married and now her last name is different? Did you walk up to her and say, I do not recognize you as Mrs. Carlson. You will forever be Miss Slaw. No, you
Those
go...
are terrible names.
I know. I was just trying to come up with white people names.
Okay.
All right. But anyway, you don't do that. I've never heard somebody have an issue with those things. Right?
No, that's definitely true. I've never heard like the technology example used before. Yeah, but they didn't say you couldn't say VCR. Like I can walk around and mutter, "Oh, VCR, VCR," because that's just what I like to do when I'm alone. But
maybe that is what these people are doing when they're at home. They say the N-word out loud in public, and then they go home and they mutter VCR.
Well, they need to be doing something else by themselves to release steam.
Learning new words and how to have empathy?
Yes, that's what I mean. Thank you for picking up on that.
You're welcome.
I'm going to segue us pretty closely on into microaggressions. Because there's a lot of them out there. Mm-hmm. And...
On both a racial side and a queer side.
Yeah. They talk mainly about a time, I think it was in high school, where they're sitting in a class and the teacher says slavery was a thing of its time.
Oh boy.
Meaning
that one.
Right. And for a minute I was like, what? Like, and then it's just meaning it was just the norm back then. And so I think of
unacceptable statement.
Unacceptable statement because if it was just the norm and it was okay, then we'd still have it. There was a
It
problem.
was never okay.
It was never okay. There was a huge problem with it.
On multiple levels.
Like, I can't even, like, fathom how horrendous this is. And that's why we essentially got rid of it and went to war and fought for it.
Well, I mean,
there
was a lot.
Complex issues going on.
I love that they brought up, there were abolitionists. So if it was a thing of its time, then why were there people that opposed this? It's because it was wrong. It was awful. It was heinous. And the end. Like, that, you don't have to go further.
But that comment sounded like you were trying to justify slavery because people were upset about people trying to take down a monument because they were a slave owner. You know, like, well, it was just one bad thing against them. I'm sure they did other things, but are we really saying that slavery wasn't bad enough to take down a monument?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure slavery was bad enough.
I think that was bad enough.
Like, you could just be like, here is a perfect human everywhere else. But then they were also a slave owner. Okay, now they're just instantly putting them with Nazis. Like, in my book. Like, you're just terrible, and you can't rectify that.
You can't. You can't say that it was ever okay or justifiable to own another human being.
No, there's no way. There's no way to do that. I really struggle with the level of anger that rises inside me when, I don't say white people, I've never heard it out of anyone else's mouth. The minute I do, I'll tell you. But when I hear white people make comments like that, and I'm just like, you so don't get it. It's ridiculous.
And there's nothing you can say in like a soundbite to make the situation better or to change their mind.
No.
So I always just get really frustrated and I say what I don't mean, or I say something that's different but it's not as sharp as I intend. You know, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
And of course you think of the perfect response an hour later.
Yeah.
And then you have it for next time and hopefully you can, pull it back up.
Yeah. Well, and then I think for me, one of my struggles is people will say stuff like that out of nowhere. And you're like, it's like getting hit with a car, right? And then as you've been hit with the car and you're very, what just happened? We were making copies at the copy machine and you said a racist thing? That's ridiculous. Sometimes those comments hit you and it's like you're gobsmacked and you're just like, I don't have a what? And it takes your brain long enough to like,
put the pieces back together.
Yeah, to be like, what? You just shattered the whole thing. You're terrible. This is new news. Especially if it's a work environment, because you're like, oh boy, and I have to see you again. But yeah, I mean, sometimes comments catch you off guard, and it's, the moment's wrong, or you can't quite get that response, and I hate that.
And even if you can, it's hard to correct that, especially in a workplace.
Mm-hmm. It just makes you hope that the HR department can be on the correct side. All right, so you wanted to talk about queer
microaggressions. Have you heard any?
Yeah. I have. How about you?
Oh yeah, just like, you don't look gay.
That one probably hurts, huh?
But you're wearing a dress. It's because it has pockets. And it was on sale.
Yeah. My favorite is like, I bring up my son and people are like, well, whose son is he? Like, but like, which one had him? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, that's not okay to ask it that way. Also, none of your business. Also, like, let's just go a few levels here. And then initially I would just answer. I would be like, well, actually, I didn't come out until late in life. And I was in a marriage with a man for 10 years. And that's how I was like, No, I don't owe that to anybody. I don't need to tell everybody that.
It's none of their business.
I know. If I want to, great. But, like, not when you're asking, quote unquote, asking me with your microaggression nonsense. Ugh. Yeah.
There's all kinds of things.
Absolutely.
Do you think you get better at answering them?
I have gotten better, but it's something I've had to make a concerted effort on because I have a kind of a crutch that I've used for years. I'm a people pleaser, which isn't a positive trait. I learned in therapy it's not a good thing.
I feel like you could do more housework if you're a people pleaser.
Oh, no, babe, I've done therapy and I've gotten better at not being a people pleaser.
Okay, well, if you ever have that tendency again, I've got a list of chores.
Oh, okay. I'll keep you
Up to date on that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I want to talk about a startling statistic because I knew it was high, but I didn't think it was quite this high. They talk about the rate of homelessness for LGBT youth is close to 40%.
I really thought we were further along than that.
So did I.
That's rough. That's heavy. I mean, because what a time to be homeless. I mean, you know, being a teenager is scary and everything feels like the end of the world, even in the best situation. I can't imagine going through your adolescence, going through school drama, going through, trying to come out or coming out or whatever.
Or just being questioning. Not, let alone the kids that have it figured out. Like, just trying to figure that out.
And then on top of all of that, to be, struggling with homelessness, that's just, that's rough. That's rough.
Yeah. On that same note, our author suggests that we tell those who say it gets better. You remember that campaign? It gets better. We tell those who say it gets better to make it better. And I loved that line because so often I feel like, well, it's better than when I was a kid or this or that. And then we go back to justifying it. And it's like, no, we have to make this better. We need to go to city council. We need to go to the school board. We need to go to our boss. We need to say, like, hey, they're saying homophobic. We need to go to HR. They're saying homophobic things. Or, hey, we need sensitivity training.
Yes.
And try to make it better for the people that are here now. Not, it will get better once you graduate and go on and do things.
Go somewhere else. Yeah.
Don't leave Texas.
Oh, I'm so tempted.
I know I'm tempted too, but you can make it better. And I just thought that was a nice kernel of hope and also like
a call to action.
A call to action to encourage their readers to get off the couch and read this book, and then when you're finished, get off the couch and do something.
Yeah. Hey, and one of those things could be checking the newspaper for
possible book bannings, because some of them happen quietly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or running for school board if you are so inclined, or volunteering for someone who wants to run and ask them about books or those types of things. So,
yeah.
All kinds of things.
One of the most difficult parts in the book was reading about the sexual abuse that George went through
with their cousin.
And then later, the schoolmate in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And it really resonated with me when they were talking about how they were like, I contemplated whether to write about you now that you are dead. And there were just like several lines that were variations on that. And about how they were talking to, all these different family members, and they mentioned this kind of idea of why do we consider the people that wronged us, their feelings more when they caused us pain than considering our own feelings and telling our story when it was something that happened to us. And I was like, whoa. Like, I mean, it just like, my brain exploded. Oh, that was just powerful. What did you think?
I think sometimes we protect the people who've hurt us because we didn't get the same protection. From them.
Look at you just putting that out there. I like it.
I'm just saying, so I think like because, something traumatic happened to us and horrific, that we just, in talking about it, we naturally lean toward protection. Mm-hmm. Even with him being dead and like wondering if they were going to write about this. Mm-hmm. That was a very powerful passage. Oh yeah. I mean, there were multiple parts in this book that I cried. Mm-hmm. Chapter 10, I cried a lot. This one, Chapter 10, what was in that? I don't have it memorized like some people.
Was that the one?
Oh, I guess you don't have it memorized either.
I don't. I want to say Chapter 10 was the one where like Nanny. They're talking about was Nanny dying or.
That was a rough one. I was like, she can't die.
Turns out, if you live long enough, you eventually die.
Yeah, that's proven to be true.
Yes, it's proven to be true. But I also really I liked in Chapter 13 when they were talking about coming out, and that when you come out, how it's just billed to us as you do it and it's one big thing and then it's over. And it's like, no, you're always coming out for the rest of your life. You're coming out on the airplane. You're coming out at the gynecologist's office. You're coming out at school. You're coming out at work. You're coming out at the gym. You're coming out in the bathroom. You're coming out on an airplane next to a person that you're trapped.
You said airplane, I think.
I know, but you're trapped there for 4 hours.
There. Well, you can change sheets with someone.
Well,
not easily.
That's a whole thing. It's a folder.
It is okay.
Okay. But like, I really liked that, and I liked how they were calling out. They're mentioning, hey, sometimes people were asking me if I was gay before I was ready. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that really resonated with me. I mean, I had people asking me if I was gay when I was in like 4th grade. And I was like, at that point in time.
Were they wrong?
They were not wrong. Okay, wait till you hear the context for this. So my parents wanted us to be cultured. And so they were like, we're going to go to the symphony. If you want, you can invite a friend. I was like, yeah, I'll invite my best friend. And so I do. And she's like, okay, I'll go. And we're sitting there at the symphony with my parents. And she turns to me and she goes, Miranda, can I ask you a question? I was like, sure. She goes, are you gay? And I was like, yeah, I'm really happy. Because that's all I knew gay meant. That was
your poor parents.
I know. But like, oh boy. Turns out, yes. Yes, I am gay.
So your first response was right.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Classic.
Well, all in all, wonderful book.
Oh, I'm not done yet.
Oh.
I've got a couple little tidbits to talk about.
Give us the tidbits.
Okay, so just a couple things where when they're little, they said that they weren't sure if they were a boy, a girl, or a science project. I just love that line. Because for people who've ever felt kind of in the middle or in between or whatever, that's how you feel. Mm-hmm. And it was really hard growing up for them because being a man meant that you must be straight and masculine.
I did really love what they were talking about with the fraternity.
I was going to say, that's on my list too, but so go ahead and talk about that.
But just that...
They found
for the first time in their life,
when they joined the fraternity.
Yeah, because they could get that kind of brotherhood and that close connection and the showmanship and all these things that they were excellent at and that they craved, but they could basically get the loyalty of that group, brotherhood, and then that could kind of, not bring up about the whole, are you gay? Even though it did get brought up.
And when their brother died. Mm-hmm. And then they kind of remembered how they had those outing conversations of who was coming out to him and who was telling him. And looking back, they were like, oh, I probably... Because they'd come out to their gay frat brothers.
Yeah.
So they're like, I probably shouldn't have been outing people. But you don't think about it in that moment.
Yeah.
But it's a good lesson for people now.
It is a good lesson.
This is a good resource guide.
It really is. It's like, here's the landmine.
For the youngins.
For the youngins. But like, here's a landmine is stepped in. Try to avoid that one. Here, if somebody does this to you, here's what I learned when it happened to me. Like, yeah, it's so... It's one of the things I really love about queer culture is it's kind of just like this oral history that we pass on in various forms of media because, you know, they won't put us in actual history books.
True.
We have to write our own. There are not too many straight people writing about queer history. And that's unfortunate. There's a lot of queer people in history and they're really gnarly and awesome.
Did you just say gnarly?
I said gnarly. It felt right. I stick to it.
Well, I have another tough statistic.
I don't like these.
I know, but I think it's important to mention them.
It is.
So the CDC, to the Centers for Disease Control, say 50% of Black men who have sex with men and a quarter of Latino queer men will contract HIV. And then Johnson argues that they need queer sex education.
Agreed.
They say there will be pushback in the chapter, the pushback. So let's get to that. What do you think about queer sex education?
It's so important.
In Texas.
No, I don't care everywhere. Because, like, you look at teenagers, they're going to have sex. Like, the end. Like, no amount of abstinence teaching is going to stop the teenagers that are going to have sex from having sex. What you can do
is scare them.
No, that would be kind of what I was just talking about. No.
Okay.
I know. What you can do is you can teach them how they can do it safely, and you can provide resources, i.e. condoms and whatever else.
Don't you think that parents should be having those conversations?
Sure.
I mean, they don't have them.
They don't.
They don't have them.
They don't. But yes, agreed. But the point is, the resources should be there because the sex is happening. It's just like you look at, we're taking a real hard turn, but come with me on the ride. If you look at retirement communities.
True. I know where you're going. The STD rate or STI rate.
The STI rate.
They're getting it on.
Everywhere, all over the place.
They can't get pregnant.
Yeah. They're like, why would I need anything? I can't get pregnant. And then everybody's got everything the whole time. And so, like, again, there's the point, is education, resources, the end.
What if it's like, here is some independent reading materials. Mm-hmm. You walk in, you pick...
And the bookmarks are condoms?
No, you pick from the
pamphlets.
my
idea.
Like, if you identify as queer, choose this booklet, or straight female, choose this, or straight male, choose this, and we have like 3 options. Mm-hmm. Or gay male, or gay female. Like, there's several pamphlet piles, and you or bisexual, because you know they've got to figure out both. Poor things. So
they have extra reading,
and extra work. Yeah, it's homework. So I think it's a little fun, but okay. But so they pick up their pamphlet or pamphlets, and they sit down and they have like the whole class period to read and giggle and highlight.
And intersex. Like,
intersex.
We need some more gender identity stuff too.
All kinds of things. So I think there's like a comprehensive options.
Comprehensive human reproductive class.
But then the teachers don't have to teach it. They just have to make them be quiet.
Oh, it's just pamphlets. Oh, this is a coach class. What's happening?
It's just pamphlets. That's what I'm saying. It's independent reading. If you are curious, kids are curious about sex, they will read the pamphlets.
Okay.
Add a little bit of, dad jokes, dad humor in there.
Okay.
Get them to wake up every so often when you're talking about fallopian tubes. It'll be fine.
Okay. So, okay.
I'm very passionate about this.
Okay, but let's examine this closely. Okay. What if the straight male dudes, right? They pick up so are they picking up a flyer that tells them about their own body parts?
Yes. And, well, how to have intercourse with who they're choosing at that time. So it'll be like, straight male, this.
So you
and then
pick up
the pamphlet.
You pick up one for who you are and one for who you want to have sex with?
No, one pamphlet for who you are and who you'll have sex with.
Oh, that's so many more pamphlets.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Comprehensive.
Okay. I like the energy, but this is what I'm suggesting.
Now you know why abstinence only is so much easier.
They're just like, don't have sex. Okay, please color quietly.
Say Nancy Reagan, just say no. But that was to drugs, which sex is another drug, but, well, kind of. I don't know.
Okay, here's what I'm proposing. Okay. The all-encompassing pamphlets that you have.
Yeah, there's a lot in my world.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not a reasonable solution.
No. I imagine them all color-coded and it gets very confusing.
Oh, the rainbow.
Yes. But what I'm suggesting, like all that kind of all-encompassing stuff.
It just looks like a Home Depot
like a paint cart, little
paint swatches. Like there's that many.
Okay. That's going to be really confusing for the kids. And then I feel like they're just going to look at boobs. I mean, because who doesn't love boobs?
Well, we won't make them look sexy.
Oh, just anatomically correct.
Yep. So one's a little smaller than the other.
Okay, gotcha. Well, anyway, the point I was going to say is the whole class, you just cover all of it. So the straight dudes will at some point hear about everything else. And maybe in the course of that, we gain empathy.
You know, that too, but also anal sex. Because straight men like to have anal sex, but they don't like to talk about how they like to have anal sex.
Agreed, yeah.
So when I think about, the challenges and then the ultimate bannings of this book, it's got to be because of the sex. It's not because they talk about the N-word or they talk about the sexual assault.
They'll probably try to just come up with everything.
It's probably everything. But, so that's kind of when I think about, like, when we look at queer sex education, what that looks like, what that means. Because figuring it out by yourself is really scary. I don't know what the solution is.
I don't know.
I don't know that I would have been comfortable learning about it in school.
Oh, well, you're deeply uncomfortable when they're just telling you about your own body parts.
I agree. I know. Like I said, I have a visceral reaction to fallopian tubes. It's a problem. But at the same time, figuring it out on my own was really scary too. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about they're losing their virginity twice. Mm-hmm. So they have sex at 21 with a frat brother's friend.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was just a really sweet moment. Like that first.
Yeah, because they'd kind of known each other and there was a connection.
I was just like, I love this for you. I really did. I was like, this is. And they were like, yeah, I'm just trying to have that, trying to figure out which energy the other guy had so they could be like, okay, I'm just going to stay. I'm gonna be the top, and I'm gonna have this energy, and I'm gonna, because like that was all they had to go off of, So I really loved it. Didn't love as much the next one. I was like, oh, I don't want you to be in pain. I don't want you to be in pain. But I did like that they were like it hurt, but I could tell that this guy
was enjoying it,
but also wasn't trying to hurt me.
Wasn't trying to, like, do it on purpose to hurt me. Yeah. And there's stuff that you do in sex that hurts, whether you've done it before or not. Like, it's just, bodies are weird, and they stretch and stick out, and they do all kinds of things, and...
Smell funny sometimes.
Smell funny, yeah, and they make noises, all kinds of noises.
See, that was the thing nobody warned me about in sex. Nobody warned me about the noises.
What about the talking with all the lesbian sex?
Oh, yeah, I love that part.
Okay, so you didn't need a warning for that.
I didn't. It was, like, so delightful. Like, it was, like, the best kept secret. Like, more people would be lesbians if they knew that there was so much talking.
You really think more people would be lesbians if they knew this talking was involved in sex? It's not a therapy session. I think you're overestimating how amazing the talking is.
Well, no, okay, maybe I'm overselling it, but I love it because it's, you're checking in with each other and you're like, do you like this? Does this feel good? Do you like that? When you want me to do something different, is this blah, blah, blah? Like, it's just great.
What's interesting to me about the first two experiences, and I like that they mention that they lost their virginity twice, because I think queer sex can be whatever you feel comfortable saying it is, right? Whether that's oral or penetrative or whatever. So when they explicitly said like top and bottom, I thought that was important.
Yeah.
But was that neither of them was really like a deep, like loving relationship. And I kind of wanted that for them.
Well, maybe
just getting to know them through the whole book.
Maybe they just hadn't found
I know.
that yet.
I'm just saying, like, that was kind of like my bum. Like, you can have sex with whoever you want, whenever you want. But I know, like, for me, it's just like that connection with someone you really deeply care about.
Yeah,
is important.
Well, I think you and I are very, very similar that way. That the relationship that you build with that person that you choose to have sex with is a very big part of it for us. And like, I know when I was first coming out, I wrestled a little bit with, am I demi or not? Like, do I need to fall in love with somebody before sex? Turns out no. But, because I do really, sex with somebody that I'm deeply connected with is just a different thing than, hey, we hooked up for a one night stand. Just completely different ballparks, like different games. And I mean, that's my unique experience. Obviously, I'm not everybody else. So, I don't know. I mean, it was interesting to kind of see, to get the framing of what that felt like for them. And it was really sweet. And I really liked that we got taken on that part of the journey and got to experience what that was like. Because, I mean, don't be alarmed. I am not a gay man.
What?
I know. I have had you fooled for a minute, but, so I don't know what that's like. And, I think we can always benefit from better understanding people that are different than ourselves. So,
how did you feel about the writing of the sex scenes? Did you feel like they were appropriate? Did you feel like it was just the information that you needed to get the gist of what was happening? Because that's what I felt. I felt like it was just a scene between two people. Like, it didn't feel overly done. It didn't feel understated. It just felt like it is.
It felt like
what it is.
I think you're dead on. Like, if somebody was like, if I said, hey, George, what was that like for you? And they were like, well, here, let me lay it out for you. This is what happened.
That's their answer.
There, the end.
Yeah,
like,
didn't
it was
feel salacious.
No, it just felt very matter of the fact. Here's what happened. And every piece of information you got gave you the context that you needed to understand it. I thought it was absolutely beautifully written book. I mean, definitely a hard read in a couple places because your heart aches for the experiences that they went through. Because, I mean,
it wasn't easy. Actually, it was quite difficult many times.
Yeah. Human stories are usually messy, usually painful. But again, that's a commonality we have. None of us are perfect. None of us have had perfect upbringings. Everybody can relate to trauma of some type, even if those traumas differ than are different than ours.
So what's your rating?
Well, okay, so I think at this point, I'm just going to say, are we just going to rate them all 5 rainbows?
No, mine's different.
Oh, no.
Is yours a 5 out of 5 rainbows?
Okay, because I just love all of them because they're so different. And I love them all and how, I don't know, it's just hard. I'm not a professional reviewer. I don't know if you know this about me.
Well, let me give you my rating.
Okay.
So there were just moments along the way where I kept wanting to read more from that situation or that story, and I just wanted more. And I also felt like it just kind of ended. And I know they're young, but I just felt like there could be a little bit more. And so I give it 4 out of 5 rainbows, just because I felt like, and maybe that's just me being selfish as the reader. Like, I really
just wanted more.
I just wanted more of their stories, and I just loved the storytelling. And it wasn't always easy to read, but it was easy to fall into.
Yes.
And it was easy to become a part of their world and get to know their people and their family and their fraternity brothers. And you just felt like you were a part of it. And just, it's very often hard for nonfiction to really put you in those moments with those people.
Yeah.
That you feel like you are with them.
I agree with that. I really, it hooked me. I read it pretty quickly. Because I don't disagree with you. I agree. I wanted more. So basically we want to put them in a time machine, send them into the future, have them finish it, and then come back into the past and release it. Or would you settle for a part 2 and then you'll raise it to 5 out of 5 rainbows?
I'll take a part 2, but I would like it to come out in a special edition where the 2 are in
together.
one.
Okay. You don't want like a top edition, bottom edition?
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay.
I kind of just want to like buy a bunch of copies of this and like throw it around at a pride parade at Youth.
No.
Youth of America.
No. Okay. So we buy a bunch of copies. Okay. And then I'm trying to think of a way to say this that doesn't make us sound like we need to be on a list. How can we get this in the hands of queer youth that need it, that are going to schools that have banned it?
Well, we could donate a bunch to resource centers, LGBT resource centers.
Okay.
There's one in Dallas. I think there's one in Austin. There's some throughout the state. There might be one in Houston. It's Houston. Houston has to have one.
And we could shove them in free little libraries.
Yep.
We could look up because oh my gosh. Okay, so they have a map of them.
Libraries?
Yes,
Yeah.
they have a map. Like you can go online, you can find a map of all the free little libraries around you. And if you were so inclined, you could put queer books in all of them.
So if you're buying books for this,
Yes.
or you have a bunch anyway because you're queer and you read books, so you have queer books.
Yes.
You could just take your extras
And put them there.
Put them there.
Oh gosh, I love this. I hope all of you are taking notes.
I hope we're taking notes. I have a bunch of books we can do that with.
I'm not taking notes. You're taking notes?
I have a note on my phone, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, seriously, I have a note on my phone.
Okay, I was like,
yeah.
I'm in charge of pressing buttons on the computer.
All right, well, next month is June.
Indeed.
Indeed, it is June.
Indeed, it is June.
Happens to be Pride Month.
Oh, wait, did I give my number for this book?
Oh, no, you didn't yet. Sorry.
4.5. I'm going to go
What was 4. your rationale, please,
Rainbow.
Ma'am?
I wanted more. I agree.
You took
I wanted
mine.
more. Can I not agree with you? I thought you liked it when I agreed with you.
Because I'm usually right.
Yeah.
But you were going to give it 5, and I feel like I diminished your rating because I was like, I want more.
Okay, fine. How about this? I go 5, you go 4, they get a 4.5.
Okay, fine.
Does that sound fair?
It does. Okay, so June is coming up. It's Pride Month, so we tried to think about some Pride reads, which was very hard to pick.
Because everything is queer.
Everything is queer. So I chose the Love is Love graphic novel anthology by DC.
Yes.
It's amazing.
It is. I've read it.
About that.
Can't wait to read it again.
Yes. And then Like a Love Story.
Haven't read that one. I'm excited to read it.
Which takes place mostly in the 80s. So there's a little bit of historical significance there. So that was hard choices. But those are our 2 picks.
And you can check our website at allqueerherepod.com. And we will have our upcoming books for upcoming episodes posted there, along with dates that those episodes will come out. So that way you'll be in the know on when to get your reading done by, so you can follow along if you follow along. If you don't, hey, now you know what happened in the book, and you can go buy it and put it in somebody's free little library so that all the queer youth can read it everywhere.
That's like the ultimate queer bomb.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, that is what we should call it. Hashtag queer bomb.
Or queer book bomb.
Queer book bomb.
Is that too long?
No, I like that better because then it designates that it's a book. Whereas queer bomb sounds like I don't know.
A bunch of gays at a bar.
Oh, that's way more fun. No, I was going to say, like, the same people banning books will be like, the queers are going to attack us. No, we just want books.
Well, they would jump there.
They would jump there. We're like, no, we legitimately just want books.
Right.
Sorry.
Absolutely. Well, until then, we're all queer here.
Yes, we are.